And in the UK, the breaking news is that British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has tested positive for the coronavirus. Juliana Olayinka joins us now for details of this and more. Good afternoon, Juliana. Tell us, how are citizens reacting to news of PM Johnson testing positive to COVID-19?
Well, it's trending on Twitter, not just in Britain, but across the world. It's a major news story, and it's likely to have enormous challenges for Britain and, of course, for government, because the coronavirus has struck right into the heart of Westminster. There was a daily briefing, which usually happens, not just because we're in the coronavirus situation, but anyway, for anybody who's covering Downing Street. And what they said is that on 2 nights ago, Prime Minister Boris Johnson did start developing a cough. This was on Wednesday during PMQs in the House of Commons on Wednesday. As most people who oversaw the Prime Minister's questions, they wasn't huddled together as they usually were. It took several hours because they tried to keep this social distancing measures, and they had politicians coming in and out of the chamber. But yes, he did develop this cough. He took a test yesterday just before we had the NHS Clap for Heroes, which took place at 8 o'clock yesterday. And just after midnight, it did come back that he was positive. And now some of the major concerns are, first of all, Boris Johnson is 55. Yes, he's short of that 70 age, but he's still, elderly-ish, and there are concerns for his health. He also has a pregnant partner called Carrie Simmons. We're not sure yet whether or not they're still living together, but of course, if you are pregnant, then you are in that safety bracket. And more widely, it's that intimate team that Boris Johnson has spent so much time with. That includes, of course, the Chief Medical Officer for Public Health England, Chris Whitty, Rishi Sunak, who appears to be one of the rising stars that have come out of this COVID-19 crisis. He was pictured yesterday evening with Boris Johnson outside of Downing Street. They did appear to keep that 2-metre distance. And we did hear from the Treasury that he doesn't believe he will go into self-isolation. But then who knows? Also, there's Matt Hancock, who is the Health Secretary, who is in the UK really at the forefront in the face of what's going on with COVID-19. What's going to happen with them? Will they need to go into self-isolation? Have they also been infected? And another major issue here in Bissy, which a lot of people are talking about, is Boris Johnson's message of working from home, staying at home. He did make it clear when he put out that tweet saying that he had tested positive, that he's only having mild symptoms and he will work from home. But the only issue with home and Downing Street is that it's very intimate. And number 10 and number 11, where the Chancellor lives, is very congested, very small. Will Boris Johnson's team also have to be working in self-isolation? So yes, it is a breaking story. It's a news story, but it's definitely developing, and it's major news here in Britain. Raised plenty of questions.
And I'm sure that you'll be monitoring those questions and bringing possible answers as the time goes. But the Bank of England has warned of mounting risk of widespread job losses and companies going out of business across Britain as the economic cost of the coronavirus outbreak becomes more apparent. Can you tell us more about this?
Well, Bissy, it's the same story we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks. It's a huge issue here in Britain. Even though the Treasury have put aside £350 billion, just yesterday the Chancellor put aside another £9 billion for the self-employed. But, these closures of businesses, these laying off of staff, that's been happening rapidly and quickly. As soon as these restaurants were told to shut down this time last week, Friday, thousands upon thousands of people had lost their jobs. A lot of people were praising the government for the measures that they had put in place, but for some it's just not coming fast enough. We had already heard from the Department of Work and Pensions that over a 9-day period, more than 1 million people had been jamming their phone lines. A lot of job centres, which is where a lot of people do actually get this universal credit, they've been shut down. There are not enough people to man the phone. So even though these these benefits and these credit facilities are being made available, well, the government said are being made available to people. For those who really need it, they're not getting it. And going back, Bissy, to yesterday when the Chancellor did announce these measures for the self-employed, if you're fortunate enough to get it, because not everyone can, if you're earning over £50,000, you can't. If you've only been self-employed for less than a year, you also can't. But if you are able to, you cannot access this money till June. So for many people, it's just not enough time. And that was the message that Andrew Bailey and the rest of the Monetary Policy Committee, who met yesterday officially for the first time, was echoing.
FTSE 100 lost steam today after 2 days of gains. And of course, the US jumps number is worst in history at 3.3 million. Bring us up to speed with the market numbers. How are the currencies and equities faring at this time?
Well, the FTSE 100, when the FTSE all shares deeply in the red, and it's likely to close even more deeply in the red now that we've got the news that the Prime Minister of Britain has this deadly disease that doesn't yet have a cure. But at intraday, the all share is down 3.96%. The FTSE 100 also down by 4.12%, and the FTSE 250 is down by 3.33%. In currencies, the pound up on the dollar by 0.11%, up on the euro by 0.27%, and down on the Japanese yen by 0.73%. It's worth mentioning, Bissy, that Next, their shares fell by about 6% this morning, and that's because their chief executive said they're actually going to close down their online store because some of their workers had complained that it's impossible for them to keep that 2-metre social distancing rule. And also as well, Alok Sharma, the business secretary, he announced yesterday and reiterated today that if you're in the property market or you're looking to buy or sell a home, that you should wait. They haven't yet made it into legislation, but they're asking people to wait at least 3 months, and that's really shot down the shares of some of the big property builders on the FTSE all share. Thanks, Bissy.
You're welcome, Juliana. Please continue to stay safe.